Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now, this episode is inspired by a question that I was challenged to answer over the weekend. My lovely wife, just sort of out of nowhere seemingly, just said, if you could only take 10 computer games with you to a desert island, or maybe if the house was burning down, if you had like a go bag of computer games, what would be in that go bag? What would go with you to that desert island? And she wasn't asking because she wants me to sort of get rid of computer games. You know, she's not sort of hinting or anything like that. But she just wanted to know if I could do that mental exercise. You know, what's at the core of that game collection for me, at least. What matters. And it wasn't an easy mental exercise. In fact, this isn't the first time that she's asked that sort of question. In the past, she's asked it, and I've just been like, I couldn't possibly. But no, she went, no, come on, you know, it's Sunday, we've got a few hours this afternoon, just think, make a list. And so I did. And what you're about to see are those 10 games. Now, this isn't a top 10 list. This isn't my top 10 favourite games of all time necessarily, although lots of these would be in my top 10. These are the top 10 games which I both adore and would essentially sustain my gaming soul on a desert island, or you know, if the house burned down. So so by no means is this a top 10, and some of these games will probably surprise you. Some of them, if you've been watching this YouTube channel for a while though, won't surprise you at all. But before we get into those 10, I just want to do a little honourable mentions list, because whittling it down to the last 10 was really hard, because I had a list of 17 games, and I wanted to take 17, and she said no, has to be 10. So whittling it down, I had to get rid of games such as Psycho Pinball. In my opinion, one of the greatest pinball games ever made. It has 3-ball action, so you can have 3 balls on the table at once, which is quite a big deal for the Mega Drive in terms of handling those graphics. Quite a big deal. Multi-table, themed tables. It's just a brilliant pinball game, and I'm yet to see it topped. Even though there's a really good pinball app on the App Store on iOS, it just doesn't quite top that. So Psycho Pinball didn't make the list. Another game that I really struggled to drop was this one, and that is GoldenEye on the Wii. Now you may be thinking, well, that's because GoldenEye 64 made the top 10. No, it didn't actually. It did not make it into my 10. This game is wonderful. It's a very visceral GoldenEye experience. No, it's not as classic or nostalgic as the N64 version, but in my humble opinion, and certainly for me, GoldenEye on the Wii, not GoldenEye 64, GoldenEye 007 on the Wii is the game that would sustain me more. And that's to do with the gameplay mechanics, to do with the replayability of the levels. Essentially, yeah, that almost made it into my top list that I would take with me to a desert island. Another game that was a close runner, but it was pipped by something else, was Micro Machines on the Mega Drive. I have so much nostalgia for this game, and it's such an important little racing game for me and my brother. Like we used to be so competitive on Micro Machines. But then it occurred to me, it's even got the Woolworths price label on there. But then it occurred to me that he wouldn't be there on this desert island, and so just playing Micro Machines on my own would probably get slightly dull after a while. Another driving game that almost made the list was Burnout Paradise. So close to getting into the list. But basically, Burnout Paradise is well, to be honest, I'm amazed that they haven't no one's followed this up yet, because it was such an interesting direction for the Burnout series, and essentially it was a peak. It was the game series really peaked with Paradise. This whole free driving experience, taking the best of games like Burnout Revenge, Burnout 2, and putting it into Burnout Paradise. The only thing I would have liked to have seen that wasn't in this game is a version of the Batmobile, like the Tumbler, maybe. But we did get Back to the Future DeLorean, so that's pretty cool. You can hover around here. But it didn't make it into my top 10. Blimey. Another game that didn't make my top 10, and again, this was so hard to get rid of, was Super Street Fighter 2 on the Mega Drive. My first Street Fighter 2 experience, the one that I suppose technically I'm best at, but I suppose the next one that I like is the Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition on the Xbox 360. But this one almost made it with me. But again, because I'd be on my own, the challenge wouldn't be there. So it kind of had to go. Well, not finally, so penultimately, Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition. Now, again, this might surprise you, a bit like GoldenEye. Why the Wii version, not for example, the GameCube version? Well, the Wii version, again, it's for the controls. This is another example where the Wii controls were implemented really, really well. The game is better for it. You actually have more subtle aiming abilities, really, in the Wii version, and it's just got lots of replayability. The atmosphere is great, and I love it. But it didn't make it into the top. Didn't make it into my little go bag. And finally, Order Up. I love this game. I love being in a kitchen, serving people as they come into the restaurant. Flipping and frying and chopping with the Wiimotes. And again, another game where the Wii controls were really well implemented. And again, this one was so close. All these 7, any one of them could have replaced something in my 10. But I had to get rid of it because it had to be 10 games. So there we go. So that was my preamble. There's the honourable mentions, which I simply had to, they would be in my heart while I was playing the other 10 games. And every now and then I'd shed a tear for one of those 7 that didn't make it in. So, without any further ado, let's crack on, shall we? Again, no particular order here. No order. There's not a top. Again, it's not a countdown. There's not a top game out of this list. It's just basically the games that I couldn't live without, or rather, as I say, that would sustain me. So here we are, the 10 games that would sustain me on a desert island, the 10 games that I would take with me in a go bag if the house was burning down. Here we are. So, no particular order, we start with SSX 3 on GameCube. Now, this particular version, also all the PlayStation 2 version, I would take either, to be honest. But it has to be SSX 3, not Tricky, for example, or SSX Blur. SSX 3 is the game for me. It's got a ton of replay value. It's got a ton of character. It's got a whole load of hidden routes and secrets. And I still don't feel as though I've mastered this game after years of playing it. SSX 3 would be a challenge, and it would feel, because of all the banter, the AI banter and the talk radio that happens when you're going from track to track. Was it EA Big radio? It would feel as though I wasn't alone. So where Street Fighter 2 would highlight that there was no one there to play with me, or Micro Machines might highlight that, SSX 3 would kind of sort of fill that little multiplayer void without being a multiplayer. So SSX 3 is where we start. Next we have, and this is going to be no surprise, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I would have to take this game with me because it is excellent. It's the nature of the open world. It's not. I wouldn't say that it's the best open world game I've ever played, in so much as the world, that is to say, but it is the most intriguing open world. It's the most beautiful open world. Games like Red Dead Redemption, which really would be in the top 20 if I had 20, including honourable mentions. Red Dead Redemption has an interesting open world as well. But this game is the combination of things. It's the open world. It is the characters that you bump into. It is the animals. It's the survival elements. It is, to a certain extent, I suppose, things like the dungeons. Although that's where this game is weaker than other Zeldas, I think. So yeah, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and also, just between you and me, I would sneak into the box Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening as well. Yeah, I just open it and put the GameCube cartridge in there. So 2 Zelda games, but shh. No one would know. Next we have Robocop versus the Terminator on the Mega Drive. I'd have to take this game. It is possibly my favourite game ever. Quite possibly. Just in terms of raw computer gameness, slightly arcadey, sit down, plug and play, have a crack, just sort of go at it. This is possibly the definitive computer game for me, as it were. And also, incidentally, coming soon, when I get back from my for holiday in Northern Ireland, I'll be reviewing the Robocop vs Terminator story, the comic story, because recently I took possession of the 4 original comics that basically this is based on. So I'm looking forward to that. But Robocop vs Terminator is so important to me, and crucially so much fun. The sound effects in particular, the music just sticks with me. I can hear it right now as I'm talking about it. This game would help to sustain me. So, mwah! Yes, Robocop vs Terminator on Mega Drive. Next we have a game that I think really has to be the trilogy. It can't be the game on its own, but it's represented by Bioshock, the Steelbook. Now the Steelbook helps because obviously it's very thematic. It's one of the few Steelbooks that I really had to get, actually, just because it looks Bioshocky. But Bioshock, it would fill that first-person shooter void left by, for example, not bringing GoldenEye on the Wii with me. And crucially, it's a fascinating, beautiful, intelligent story with a world that's dripping with atmosphere. I absolutely love, in particular in Bioshock, that sort of steampunk, chrome punk kind of sensibility. But I think I'd probably have to sneak into the box Bioshock 2 and 3. Maybe what I would do is I'd get the Xbox One trilogy box set. That's what I'd do. I'd go and buy an Xbox One and just have that as my only game on the Xbox One, the trilogy. So Bioshock Trilogy would have to come with me. Obviously Bioshock Infinite is just it just caps it off beautifully. So, yep, that would help to sustain me on the desert island. Next we have a game that this one wouldn't have to be part of the whole series. I could play this one on its own. That's fine. I wouldn't cheat with this one, and that is Resident Evil 2. Now I might be tempted to take the N64 version because that was the first version I ever played. It's the version that I cut my teeth on in terms of Resident Evil, and the N64 version is also the one that I really truly love. But the GameCube version was closer to hand, so in the go bag, I'm afraid this might have to come with me. Resident Evil 2. It's as simple as that. It's the best. It's the best of all of them. It's better than Resident Evil 4. It's better than, in my opinion, the first Resident Evil. Although, again, when I get back off my holiday, we'll be getting a little Let's Play of the HD re-release of Resident Evil 1, the remake, the RE remake, Resident Evil 2. That's where it's at. And also, there is multiplayer, not multiplayer, so there's multiple play-through value there. There is a couple of different options, a couple of different decisions you can make with the different characters. So, yeah, it'd have to come with me. Next, we have Mario Kart 8, or Mario Kart on the Wii. I would take either, to be honest. And the reason for this is that you do get an awful lot for your, a lot of bang for your buck. Mario Kart Deluxe Edition on the Switch obviously has that enhanced multiplayer, but in this case, because again there won't be anyone to play with, Mario Kart 8 is on the Wii U is perfectly fine for me. Or, as I say, the Wii version, because they both also hark back to previous incarnations of Mario Kart. You have, in particular on the Wii version, some wonderful reimagining of even like Game Boy Advance tracks. And I think there's one or two on here as well. So Mario Kart 8 or the Wii edition would be very necessary just to keep me going. And unlike Micro Machines, Mario Kart is again one of those games that populates itself with characters that fill that void. They somehow make it feel as though you're playing against other characters, even though you're on your own. So that's again, it would help sustain my gaming soul. Next we have, let's see. Next we have the Metroid Prime Trilogy on the Wii. And in this case, I'm not having to cheat. It is a genuine one single box Metroid Prime Trilogy. Yes, again, it would scratch that FPS itch, but it also comes with a whole lot more. I'd try and max out all the games. I'd scan everything. I'd get everything. I'd replay it countless times. It comes with a widescreen presentation, so it just looks gorgeous. This is the definitive Metroid Prime experience, and again, it's just a must. I couldn't live without it. Speaking of something else I couldn't live without, that is Batman Arkham City, the Game of the Year edition, in particular with the Harley Quinn's Revenge bonus content. It was this or Arkham Asylum, and in the end I went with this because it's bigger, it's got more characters, the story is more intricate, and also it's got more interesting side quests. For example, the side quest with Zaz and the telephones, the payphones. I won't say anything else in case you haven't played this game yet. This game is beautiful, and it's a BAFTA winner. You know, it's a game which is genuinely outstanding. And in some ways, if just imagine if this had been the first in the series, people would have literally had their heads explode from their bodies. But I think the only reason why Arkham City received a slightly less powerful response than Arkham Asylum is because Arkham Asylum had already broken that ground, if you see what I mean. But Arkham City somewhat perfects the formula. So Arkham City would be coming with me to that desert island. Now the penultimate item would be the orange box on the Xbox 360. Again, you might say, well, that is cheating. That is cheating, but I don't care. It's one box. It's one box, and it's my list. It is my go bag. So 10 items, and this is one of those items. It includes, of course, Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, Half-Life 2 Episode 2. It includes Team Fortress 2, but that's a multiplayer thing. Again, we've already established that's not the focus. But crucially, it has Portal. One of my favourite 3D puzzle games ever. And again, that would just scratch the puzzle itch. We've got a bit more FPS scratching. And also, again, in that sense, Half-Life 2 represents quite a lot of replayability. Yes, it is a very, in that sense, it is a very linear experience. You do go essentially from A to B in the story, but there are lots of different little quirky moments, like the moments when you get to play with physics, where you get the gravity gun, you get to sort of do seesaws with breeze blocks and yourself. There's lots of stuff that's a distraction to keep you going on a desert island, and so between Half-Life 2 and Portal, I'd be very happy. In fact, I could almost exist with just this on its own, almost. But let's not go there. Let's not get crazy. I mean, this is a desert island after all. Speaking of desert islands, my final pick, my final in these 10 games or 10 items that I could take with me to a desert island is Super Mario Sunshine. Now that might be a bit surprising. It's for many people it would be Super Mario 64. For other people it would be Super Mario Galaxy. And actually Galaxy almost made it into the list. But Sunshine just has, again, that quirkiness. It has that little exploration value, that sort of off-piste, getting away from the main path. It has some problems, yeah. It has some issues in terms of the control scheme, and the camera's a bit wonky. But that also adds to the challenge, the longevity of the game. And as I've said in the past, it's a game which I have been parted from previously. I did want to get rid of this, or my copy of this, and I simply had to get it again. I couldn't live without it, so I had to reacquire the game. It's a Super Mario. It's a platformer. Again, it would scratch that sort of itch. But it's just those little things that you can add to the game, like, for example, the characters in Mario Kart, or like, for example, the exploration in Half-Life 2, or like the side quest in Batman Arkham City. This game has enough character, enough of that oddness, that otherness, just to keep me going on that desert island. So guys, what about you? What would you take to a desert island if you had to? What would be in your go bag in terms of those 10 items, those 10 computer games that would keep you going if the house burned down? What would you take with you? Please do comment below. Let me know. Let me know if you kind of see where I'm coming from with this list. It is a bit weird in places, and also with the honourable mentions, things like Order Up. I mean, Order Up probably is on no one's list of games that they love and that would take with them, but you know, it's on my list. And if there's anything in particular, anything quirky like Order Up that you would take with you, again, just let me know down below. What's that strange game that you couldn't live without? Or frankly, there's that strange game that just makes you smile, and you're like, yeah, I would need that. I would need that on a desert island. Just let me know down below. As ever, guys, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.